Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I'm your host, Maryann Petri. There is a non-denominational retreat weekend at the Resolution Center of Jacksonville, Florida. This will be a time of support and renewal for parents and grandparents on the journey of parental alienation, standing strong in resilience, paving the way for good health and a great future. This will take place April 22nd through the 24th at the Resolution Center of Jacksonville, Florida. I will have all the details in the podcast notes. I have a new guest. Her name is Hope Wagner. She's a grandmother, and she has gone through a murder of her daughter, and they are forcing the perpetrator to continue life with her family members. And this is very multifaceted. I am going to let Hope tell her story because her family has been through so much, and her family literally has been held hostage for 24 months. And the children continue to be in contact with this perpetrator and abuser. I welcome you to the show, Hope Wagner.
Hi, Maryann. Good morning.
Good
Nice
morning.
to see you. Nice to talk with you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, definitely. You have a lot to tell us that we need to know about because there's a lot going on. We had talked earlier about not only this murder with your daughter, which is horribly tragic, and the children she left behind, but how the city and child services subcontract with non-for-profit 5014C and 5013C. You have a lot to tell us, and we have a lot to learn. So thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I can really begin on the topic of, and I'd like to stay focused on it. I've talked so much about the details in depth of the murder of my daughter and homicide investigation, but the aftermath is so vital.
Mhm.
Um, trying to reconnect the pieces of your life
Mhm.
and, being supportive to your family. And I can't stress enough that each family has their own um, identity, their own relations with one another, and uh, losing a piece of that part of our world. Um, the aftermath was absolutely explosive and in our family unit.
Mhm.
And you would think in when I've always thought, because there was a life before the murder of my daughter and a life after the murder of my daughter. And, just in brief, life before the murder of my daughter, I always, in this particular subject, felt that children and family services are a definite need in the community for families who go through trauma or need support or on all different levels. And um, it's a secure thing to have in your community. I still believe that even after the murder of my daughter. However, my experience with those services being supportive have actually been detrimental to my family. And you would think the system would go above and beyond to shield you from the murderer of your family member, but in our particular case, they have designed to where they, for the past 24 months, uh, encouraged and forced us to continue to have relations with the convicted murderer of my daughter.
Mhm.
And I have been fighting that for 24 months, and I refuse to participate in that. I call it a scheme uh, because nobody can comprehend the fact that he has any say or any rights to these children, even after conviction. So, when this first happens and Children and Family Services come in and CPS, and then you have a third party, which is a non-for-profit under the 501(c)(3)s or the 501(4)(c)s. They're also subcontracted by the Department of Children and Family Service or the county. They subcontract with these agencies, these non-for-profit. So you have three organizations involved. You have CPS, which is a subcontract in my particular situation from the county, along with the non-for-profit, the House of Good Shepherd. And then you have the Oneida County Children and Family Services. So the three of them work together, and they work together with this plan for a family in trauma. And it's almost like a cookie cutter plan. And they develop a care plan for the family and the children, which is basically all focused on reunification and having relations with the parent that's incarcerated. And that's my particular case that happened.
Mhm.
And once I spoke up and said, "Oh, this isn't going to work. This isn't. Do you realize what he has done?"
Mm.
It didn't matter. My battle began, and I was silenced. And I was silenced and eliminated from their life, so they can go along with this plan for 24 months. So my whole process started October 23rd of 2019. That was the day that Children and Family Services had said to us, my husband and I, that we'll no longer be able to partake with the children at this point. And that set me off on this mission to um, exploit these decisions.
Mhm.
So I started a course with my local my local officials. What's happening here? What's going on? Uh, it became a very hostile environment. That they've created this hostile environment that I ended up back at my district attorney's office and feeling that everybody's upset with me. Um, I mean, it was pretty hostile because I was telling them we're not going to do this plan. And thinking that the system is broken, I get it, the system's broken, but then it was brought to my attention that what is happening is actually criminal.
Mhm.
And it's as if there was a collusion against the grain of what my husband and I were there for. So it's been a process. And I think what any family member does when something like this happens is you just dive in and you start researching and you start making phone calls and you start reaching out. And I would reach out to attorneys, and I can't even tell you the countless amount of attorneys I had counsel with and how reluctant they were to challenge this measure, almost
Mhm.
as if the departments are right, 100%. We're not going to challenge them, whether they were in fear of them or they're not allowed to practice family law. I mean, it was an absolute shocking. Um, and I think that's a common thread. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts, and people are absolutely shocked, and the system relies upon that shock and not having access to an outlet. There's no outlet,
Mhm.
and who do we turn to? So when you have your officials saying, well, it's a family court matter, and you'll have to resolve it in family court, and you're on the outside saying, this isn't a family court matter. No, the system threw us in the family court arena. I mean, you threw us in there. And I kept asking people, you know, the district attorney and other officials, the county executive, and I kept asking them, do you people, even up to the state level, do you people realize what you're asking me to do? You're asking me to hire an attorney to go into the family court arena to fight to revoke his parental rights? Why is that my responsibility?
Mhm.
Why is that any of my family's responsibility? Um, to fight against and hire an attorney to fight against removing his rights. And people are just automatically saying this is the way it works. And I refused. I refused to participate in that. I educated myself. I had a little bit more information. Um, I ended up going up the chain of command through the state level. Through this process, it is like from supervisor to deputy commissioner to the commissioner for the state of New York, all the way up the chain. You go through the chain of command. There are, I would just have to say that the word verbiage, each one of them had two different last names. You never had the same person to talk to. Um, it is designed to make it very difficult to talk with anybody.
Mhm.
Um, and then you finally get to the top of the chain, which is the commissioner, who oversees all commissioners, and basically tells me that we reviewed your complaint and we're going to stand by the caseworkers and this and the commissioners. And uh, she said, but what you can do is also file a complaint with the New York courts, the Office of New York Courts.
Mhm.
So, and then try again in family court, file a petition in family court. And I said, do you realize what you're asking me to do? And I'm not you have to laugh because of the insanity. You get to a
Mhm.
point where anything that makes common sense of any nature, you get to a level that you have to laugh to the insanity of it because you just would have a breakdown. There's
Mhm.
people, I am sure there's people who have not survived this system and to sit here and be able to talk about it.
Mhm.
Either they give up or they go down another path because it's so overwhelming of a destruction, especially family that's in trauma and our level of trauma. This is like uh, unbelievable. So I don't believe the system expects you to rebel. And, the more you go against the grain of the system, the more you feel that um, you are being, targeted.
Mhm.
And you try to explain that to people who have no idea. They're thinking maybe you're paranoid or, I understand what you went through and now you had this murderer in your life. And they try to, we talked about red flags earlier, Maryann, and, I'm talking red flags here. And the red flags I'm talking about is against the very system
Mhm.
that you're supposed to be able to turn to. But they're the ones that are giving me the flags. It's shocking. So
Mhm.
now, where I am with this today is that I've understood the language. I see the operation. I believe it's the climate across the country. This is changing. It's reversing. It's going to take some time. I do believe this is an attack on our families.
Mhm.
It's an inside job. It's devastating to families. They rely on that. And I'm totally focused on we the people, and we have to change this. And you know, reaching out and talking more about it is therapeutic for me because the system will silence you.
Mhm.
They'll fight you. Um, I'm at the point now where I'm educating myself even more about my constitutional rights and how they are more more valuable to me today, where I thought they were an automatic, but they have to be exercised. They have to be nurtured and exercised. And, you know, the system relies on your vulnerabilities and your innocence of just trust. Because
Mhm.
I just trusted I trusted my government. I trusted my backyard government. You know, the people that we vote in. And I've met some great caseworkers. I've met some great law enforcement, and they are frustrated as well. So this is a deep-seated issue before even the murder of my daughter, but I wasn't aware. I'm
Mhm.
I was living life like everybody else,
Mhm.
and I am guilty of that. I'm guilty of the fact that I, was ignorant to the idea that this stuff couldn't possibly be happening
Mhm.
in this day and age, you know. Um, but it's happening more than I can ever imagine. And so it's become bigger than just my family. Um, being a voice for my daughter's children that they took away from me, and I'll fight till death do us part.
Mhm.
Um, and I say that in a sense, till death do us part from the system, who is now my perpetrator. Justice was served for my daughter. There was due process. Uh, he had plenty of opportunity to take responsibility for what he had done. Um, he had plenty of opportunity before he murdered my daughter to reach out for help. He had his due process. He uh, he even took the stand for 5 hours. So there was due process for him. And at the end, at sentencing, he still was not willing to take responsibility after a 3-week trial.
Mhm.
Um, and, the judge um, made it very clear at sentencing. Either, you are totally delusional of what just took place, or you don't have a soul in that body. And um, the judge also made a special note in the file, in the transcript, on record, that he should be nowhere near these children ever.
Mhm.
And he is going to make a note in the file for when he's long gone and 25 to life comes up to a parole, that it was recommended by the original sentencing judge, um, that he should be nowhere near children.
Mhm.
So, I mean, everybody knows that instinctively anyway. This is a dangerous person.
Mhm.
Um, this wasn't a crime of passion, but even if it was, keep the children away. Um, this was a planned murder. He had planned the murder. He used his children in the murder. Um, and what I mean by that is there's 3 factors that exist. And this is the other thing that I have been talking about for 24 months. And screaming at the top of my lungs, calling everybody up the chain of command, even my public officials, all the way up to my senators. I have 3 children here who he used. He groomed these children for this crime. Um, and I was saying that before even the trial, because I'm with the homicide investigators almost every day. I'm in communication with the homicide investigators. When the children were initially questioned by the detectives, the first, couple days are the most vital days in the homicide investigation. Um, and I already knew. And I'm trying to tell these people, these caseworkers, that, there's 3 elements that exist. One, he groomed the children for the murder of their mother for months. 2, he directed the children what was going to happen and um, clean up and cover up the murder. what to say to the police, how to say it. The children knew and were helping him in the process under his direction. And that makes them in the house the night it happened. It was also stated by the children, they witnessed it. So I have three very powerful elements, facts, that these children, um, he groomed these children for this brutal murder. Their mother fighting, uh, and the children in the room seeing this, witnessing this, hearing this, and then the cleanup and the cover up. And I have a system over here who is helping these children with Sesame Street videos, how to have relations with a parent that's incarcerated. Shocking.
Mm-hmm.
So this was, to me, it had turned into a criminal level to me because this is done with intention. This is intention. You are intentionally forcing more crime onto my family. So it's almost, it's not almost, it is. You're allowing a murderer, now a convicted murderer,
Mm-hmm.
to still control my family. And it was done with intent. It wasn't done, it's not a bad, like work ethics or people weren't properly trained or, because I was given from the very beginning to everybody the benefit of the doubt, like this is a bigger case than me, this is a bigger case than you guys. Let's get a supervisor involved. I was given the benefit of the doubt. But now, after all my effort, this is intentional.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the way it's going to be. And this is the way I'm talked to. And now it's so hostile where I live. I can't even feel safe. You can't feel safe to even go out.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I live where it's lawless. Who's there for us, for my husband and I? So a secondary crime has taken place, and I don't have anyone to turn to say, I want protection from these people, because what they're doing is criminal. It has to be. You're forcing children to have relations with a murderer, and nobody's going to step up to the plate. Not even as a citizen. Just step up and say, something isn't right here. And I called him out on it. I called the attorney for the county out on it, and I asked, they're trying to explain to me that there's family court laws that allows this, and this is what I'm working on, blah, 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 and in the family court arena. And I finally asked her, I said, are you a mandated reporter? And, she was offended that I even questioned her. I said, because if you're a mandated reporter, I said, just take me out of the scenario as a grandmother. I'm just a concerned citizen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hearing there's 3 children, 3 little girls being forced to have a relationship with the murderer of their mother. Where's the order of protection? Just do that as a citizen. And you're the attorney representing the departments in family court and thinking this is okay. This isn't okay. The judge, isn't there a common sense level here that, these children are being forced to the perpetrator and saying, where's the order of protection? The children don't need to be a part of this. How is this in the best interest of the children? Somebody just speak up. And nobody will go against the grain. No one. So I feel that I'm out here, reaching out. That's why I reached out to you, Maryann. There's a couple other victim advocates I'm working with that are baffled across the board anyway with the climate of crime and some of the things that our governors or people are taking action to release murderers and hardcore criminals back out on the street. So there's so many other issues, but it's also the climate, and on top of what I'm working with.
Mhm.
My next move, I'm going to keep talking about it. I'm going to keep doing this. There won't be any rest for myself, my husband. Um, there won't be any peace for my daughter, their mother, Carrie, which uh, we should be talking about her and her fight. And but I could hear her now. I could feel her energy. We felt
Mhm.
her energy during the trial, and I could hear her saying, "Kudos to you, Mom,"
Mhm.
because she would want me to be a voice for her children. And that's where I come till death do us part, because I'm connected, institutionally connected to the murderer of my daughter. Uh, and I have done everything I possibly can other than initiate a citizen's arrest against the officials who are stopping me. And I will not walk into that family court arena.
Mhm.
If I did, the initial thing that I was directed to do was to get an attorney and fight in that family court arena because of the other warriors before me. And I was blessed to hear other people who have gone through the family court arena and the system to fight for their grandchildren, or to fight even for their own children who were wrongfully taken from them. They saved me from losing everything I have, because these parents and grandparents before me, this has been going on a long time, have lost their home. They've taken out second mortgages to pay
Mhm.
these family court attorneys to go down this dark rabbit hole of the same old cycle going nowhere. And because they were the warriors in front of me, I'm coming up to this, and I've learned, and through the grace of, that my husband and I aren't challenged with that.
Mhm.
So we didn't go down that rabbit hole and take out a second mortgage and get into that level of debt, and stepping out and saying, no, I have more rights
Mhm.
in this particular situation outside family court, where if I stepped in family court, they would take those rights away from me.
Most
And what I
definitely.
mean by that is I have 3 very, very important documents that the system refuses to acknowledge. And I have the birth certificate of their mother, the death certificate of their mother, and the medical examiner report of the cause of death of their mother, listing me as next to kin. And I feel if I walk into the family court, they would try to take those away from me. And I'm not going to allow that. I'm going to have the system accountable, and
Mhm.
they're covering up the child abuse now. The abuse was finally founded. I just want to put that on the record. The abuse was finally founded. It took 24 months, but this whole time, nobody acknowledged the abuse. And I mean, even the attorney for the children wouldn't even communicate with me. They create this such hostile environment. Even under the color of law, walk into family court and represent yourself.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Uh, Nobody calls you back. No other attorneys work with you. Um, they're hostile towards you. I can't even get a copy of any of the records um, without a court order. This is intentional crime by the system. They are ripping your rights away.
Mhm.
Um, and to turn to somebody for help, um,
Mhm.
I'm now just acting as a citizen and uh, giving a voice out there for everybody to hear, that what you're going through is not, you're not crazy.
Mhm.
I hear you. I understand you. I feel what your energy. I know what you're going through. And I'm out here as a citizen. I'm getting ready to make a citizen's arrest against the public officials who are supposed to protect me, because you can't get away with this. You can't get away with this intent of, this is, this is our country. I mean, we have our liberties to be heard, our right to be heard. Um, and we have a right to due process.
Mhm.
We have a right to due process, and to be able to do that freely without intimidation. So that has not been my experience at all. And I hear other people out there with the same.
Mhm.
And so it is therapeutic to talk about it. It is, it I can say now it's on record that in the family court that abuse was founded,
Mhm.
and April 22nd is the next court date for him. They're going to give him the option to surrender his rights.
Mhm.
Okay. They're going to give him the option to surrender his rights. Um, my daughter fought for her life.
Mhm.
I've seen every bit of evidence to that time of her life. I've seen the videos. I've seen where they found her. I've seen what he did to her. It was on the death certificate, blunt force trauma to the front of the head with a gunshot to the back of the head. My daughter fought 3 rounds of a shotgun while her children screamed. I can't. I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
he gets a choice.
Yeah. Right.
He
This is
gets
what
this.
a lot of people are having problems with this issue, similar to yours, that con- the convict has more rights than the family court individual trying to see their kids.
Well, I I see it's the climate too.
Mhm.
I see it's the climate across the country. Um, Hard for me to believe, because I'm older. I'm getting closer to retire. My husband is too, and it's just so hard for me to believe that. And I have friends that are in their 70s
Mhm.
that are angry, that are angry at uh, this whole thing that we're going through. But they're angry at the country and what our government was going through, even at that level, in the country. But then to know the presence of the issues right in our backyard. I mean, I have friends, from California, Colorado. You know, I had, friends in New Hampshire. Everybody is feeling at some level the climate of what's going on in our country. And then you have your backyard politics. It trickles right down to the backyard politics. And you're seeing your own neighbors with the pain in their face
Mhm.
and the fear. And there is some serious reality here that we have to speak up, and we have to uh, educate ourselves of our constitutional rights and who we the people, what does that mean?
Mhm.
We the people, what is it that we want as a people? And stay alert to those issues. um, like I said, this is branched off to not just freeing my family, my my granddaughters from this perpetrator who brutally murdered their mother in front of them, and made it sound and groomed them as if this is okay because we're going to get you a new mommy, and some of the things he was saying to the girls. Um, you know, freeing them, and then I see all the other children who have lost their lives to uh, this system.
Mhm.
I've seen parents cry, fathers as well. I really want to acknowledge that.
Mhm.
There's good men out there who love their children and want to be a part of their life, and I really believe over the past few decades have gotten some raw deals,
Mhm.
and that's all a part of the breathing mechanisms of the system and child support, and it's a money making system,
Mhm.
and people are becoming very wealthy off the backs of other hardworking men who just want to have their children in their life.
Mhm.
And then there's also men out there who, and women, this isn't a gender thing to me. This is like a person, having, knowing for a fact now that the murder of my daughter, who was my son-in-law, he is a genuine psychopath.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
He but he was a loving dad. He would run through the sprinkler. He would change diapers. He was in the delivery room. There's Christmas pictures and birthdays. And this whole thing was 12 years in the making. So we can't live in fear of the fact that, you just can't live in the fear of that fact. My daughter didn't live in the fear of that. You have to live life. We have evil and bad people in the world. Um, but the sad part is that the misuse of that and a tug of war over children in a dispute of a divorce or anything like that. Um, if I could give anything out there, I mean, someone at the very top did ask me, so what is it we could do for you? What is it we can do? I don't have a whole lot of power, but what is it we could do? I said, well, for one, you could revoke his rights.
Mhm.
I need him out of the way. And for two, I want the government away from my family.
Mhm.
I want the government away from my family. And I expect that in this country. And those were the correct answers. We need to keep the government away from our family. They're not therapists, they're not counselors, they're not, you know, they're not designed for that. And I think some have become reliant on the fact that they're going to fix the problems, and actually they've caused devastation.
Mhm.
And I'm only saying that because I was thrown into this arena, and I've lived a little bit of life, and I've known couples that have been married forever, for years, and I've known couples who have divorced and handled their affairs outside of the system, and child support or whatever. And it was for the best interest of the children. Let's be dignified. Let's co-parent, whatever.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
I believe the system has also became a dependent that
Mhm.
they're going to fix this. So it takes all of us. We need a system. We do. There's bad people out there that with intent hurt children, and we have to be a safety net. But to come in and to dictate and threaten and intimidate and force uh, my family to have relations with a perpetrator is something's terribly wrong.
Mhm.
I've had fathers reach out to me through this and say, I never did anything for my children. And through this family court, I haven't seen my son in 15 years. And I didn't murder nobody,
Mhm.
right? So yeah, this is wrong. We all have to pay attention. This is wrong all the way around. It's not doing anybody any good. And so we I think as a people with families, what are our family values today?
Mhm.
Really, what are they? What do they mean to us today? Um, I was very I valued my family, and we're struggling through the
Mhm.
aftermath, and it has not. It's complex trauma. My grandchildren aren't doing well.
Mm.
Um, It's been documented. They're not doing well. They're not thriving.
And
And
I don't think they have the right psychologists to deal with what the trauma they have been through. They have inept psychologists that are fumbling around when they need a forensic psychologist.
correct. I agree 100%. I agree. Um, I'm a big fan of the therapeutic process.
Mhm.
I'm a big fan of that in anything in your life. In fact, I raised all my children with that idea that, if you ever feel, so isolated or alone that nobody understands you, you turn to your family or you turn to your friends, and you're still not finding a solution. Never be ashamed to reach out for help
Mhm.
and keep going because I believe that's what it's about. And, um, however your journey is going to be, whether you're going to reach out to a fellowship or church or, something that's in a positive direction that fulfills you. And I know that's what my daughter Carrie had.
Mhm.
She was thriving. She had everything to live for. And
Mhm.
it was absolutely impossible to think that it was any type of suicide.
Mhm.
And I have to hold on to the miracles that did take place through this whole process. And, some people say, oh my God, what kind of miracles can you find in a vicious murder like this? And believe it or not, there's many. Uh, if we didn't find Carrie, it goes back to that, no body, no crime.
Mhm.
He said it was suicide. He panicked and cleaned everything, put her body in a dumpster. He panicked. If we didn't find her, we wouldn't have been able to get the medical examiner for cause of death. Um, he said when he saw her in the room and the gun and he panicked, he put it all in a bag and threw it in the river. There was a dive team that went in the river where you couldn't even see your hand in front of your face. It was so mucky. It was 17 feet deep down in this river, and they found the gun, the butt of the gun, sticking out of the ground in the bottom of the river, 17 feet below. That's a miracle to
Mhm.
find that. These are miracles that were happening. And one of the other things was we had a witness that went up on the stand, and she was my daughter's buddy that she would run and work out with because my daughter wanted to run a 15K race.
Mhm.
And she lost 100 pounds. She had 3 children. She gained a lot of weight through that process, but within less than a year, she lost 100 pounds. She was at her maximum fitness, and she ran a 15K, and she completed the race just weeks before he murdered her. And during the trial, her running friend there got up there as a witness to describe Carrie's uh, attitude and personality during that time frame. And she described Carrie as ecstatic and exciting, and she couldn't believe she was running the 15K, and she couldn't wait for it to be over because she was on such a strict diet to get to this point, to this race day. And she kept saying, once I cross the finish line, I'm going to get my brownie. I
Mhm.
want a big fat brownie.
Mhm.
And that was my daughter's character. So everybody in the trial, as her friend is describing Carrie and her energy, when she crossed the finish line, the young girl who was a reporter on the race went up and asked her, and how does it feel to complete the race 15K? She goes, I feel great. It was the best experience of my life. And she goes, and I'm going for my big fat brownie. And the whole, including the 12 jurors, the judge, we all laughed.
Mhm.
And I felt their carries presence in that moment. That was my daughter in life. And I said that in the sentencing. This was my daughter in life. And everybody was able to feel that.
Mhm.
So I hold on to those it gives me strength because we're going to continue her race, and she
Mhm.
deserves that. And her voice needs to be heard. And her voice is going to be heard through her children, her daughters. So how do I look at this? I'm going to keep fighting. In a few years, all my granddaughters are going to be of legal age, adults, and I'm going to hand them the reins.
Mhm.
And whether we can accomplish it in my lifetime or I hand the reins to them, we're going to change this.
Mhm.
We're going to change this.
Do you have any contact at all with your granddaughters or not? Anything?
None. None. And that's part of the care plan and part of his parental rights.
Yeah, that has to be changed. I can't believe the court can't see this.
Oh, I think they see it. I just
Mhm.
think they're untouchable. We're going to do what we're going to do. Everybody line their pockets.
Mhm.
Everybody line their pockets. They want me to come into the arena and be a part of their scheme.
Mhm.
And I called the chief clerk and I said, I will not participate and bring fraud upon the court. I respect the court.
Mhm.
Okay. The court is designed by our forefathers. We have these due process and we have our liberties in place. They're designed to protect. And you are forcing me to go into an arena to carry on with a scheme of corruption and do what you tell me to do so everybody can line their pockets and not what's in best interest of children. I will never do that.
Mhm.
No, I won't participate. And I can only speak this strongly because of the ones before me. The ones before me that I
Mhm.
thank God for the internet and
Mhm.
networking through the internet because there's no way anybody could work through this without
Mhm.
getting past the regular media, you know, talking to real people through the internet, your podcast, getting the message out, having those opportunities to get educated
Mhm.
um, through people like you, what you're doing. Um, the value in that is amazing. And I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for this opportunity at
Thank
so
you.
many levels. How this has touched me to give a voice to my situation and know that there's networks out there that are willing to take their time on a Sunday morning and hear me
Mhm.
to spread the word. Um, Maryann, it's touching. That's the humanism that is lacking in the backyards of our system. It really
Mhm.
is. And yeah,
I know we had talked early. You said there were some red flags that your daughter had said they never really fought until they had kids, but there were possibly some red flags before that. Do you think there were?
yes, this was the red flags uh, were like she would come to me as a young mom, a young mother. She would come to me and say things like, well, we're talking about after the children were born. It really escalated. But before they even had children, it seemed as if um, he always had an issue with someone in the family.
Mhm.
Uh, e- Even in an intentional way. I had felt that he was envious of my daughter's relationship with her family.
Mhm.
There was that feeling I got from him sometimes, like he would intercept our connections, like at a barbecue. I'd be in a conversation, or my husband be in a conversation with our daughter talking or whatever, and he'd had to come up to steal that moment. So it was small little things. But after the children were born, she my daughter would come home quite often just to stop by and say, Mom, this isn't right. I don't know if this is right, or what do you think? You know, um, one of them was, uh, and again, when children and family services get a family and they're supposed to do an intake
Mhm.
of the family, there's so many layers of things that they never talked to me about that had to do specifically with the children that my daughter came and talked to me about. And one of them happened to be with, she was concerned about Benadryl.
Mhm.
And she came to the house and she said, Mom, I'm not really liking the idea that, he gives the girls Benadryl all the time to help them sleep. I said, what? I said, that's not right, Carrie. No, that's not. She goes, do you ever do anything like that? I said, no, Benadryl isn't for that. And, you know, just leaving it at that, I'm sure, well, I know she would, have this conversation with her husband, say, you're not going to do this.
Mhm.
This is something I totally disagree with. I don't think it's what it's for. And we're not going to do it. And they'll eventually fall asleep or whatever. But it was things like that that probably turned into horrific 2 or 3 days arguing,
Mhm.
and the mind games came in, and, you know, almost as this, how dare you question me? Um, and we do know through the trial that so many other things came out, how he kept a record almost minute by minute of everything she did that came out in
Mhm.
trial. Like 6 a.m., woke up, she had toast and started her day. 6:15, in and out of the shower with a white towel. It
Mhm.
was just, it was like minute after minute. So there was a serious obsession
Mhm.
that took place. And, you know, a lot of other things that revealed itself of just how ill he was. And, things that I came across. And,
Mhm.
we had to pack up the house and bring it home. And these are things that just aren't, these are against the universe for a parent to do.
Mhm.
And, but this was a very well thought out, planned
Mhm.
murder. And he was already setting up his next victim.
Mhm.
And on a dating site, and she came up as a witness as well in the trial. So he was already planning his next visit. When I talked to an expert of prevention for domestic violence through this process, I was informed by her, and she also had taught um, in schools about signs or flags or whatever. She has said with all her research, well, first of all, she wanted to say, Hope, I'm a mother. I have two daughters. And one daughter, I have no concern or anything like that. But my other daughter, she just seems to be a target for, you know, um, people that come around and want to take advantage of her character or whatever. She goes, and I can't seem to pass that. You can't, there's nothing, even though both of my daughters are very well educated and things like that.
Mhm.
She said, but uh, these perpetrators are smart and slick, and you just can't live that way. You can't live in that fear. But she wanted to reassure me it had nothing to do with me as a mother,
Mhm.
or because you do question, like, what should I have done? Should I have done something different? Or
Mhm.
you really start, questioning. And there was nothing I could do. But I look at that and I say, well, she wasn't afraid of him.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I'm grateful that she wasn't afraid of him. And I knew she fought for herself.
Mhm.
And I don't know if anybody can understand that, but it validates me that
Mhm.
she had a fight
Mhm.
and she had that in her as a woman, as a mother, as my daughter, that she was able to do that.
Mhm.
And so I want her daughters to have that same in them
Mhm.
as a woman and mother, grandmother now. I want them to have their own free thought and free will, which has been completely um, ripped from them
Mhm.
because they're being directed and told what they need to do. You know, it's
And
incomprehensible to me. I
mm,
can't, I just, uh, if anything, eh, when this is over with, these girls need to have that support,
mhm.
that they have free thought and free will, and they're validated
Mhm.
instead of suppressed and
Mhm.
oppressed, and wiped clean, and you got a whole new life now. And
Mhm.
he's still going to be in your life, and we're going to go visit him at prison. I
Mhm.
mean, this is why I said till death do us part. I'm now connected to this murderer for the rest of my life until he's completely silenced.
Mhm.
He's got to be completely silenced. He's got to be non-existent. And I have never in my life ever had the anger that I had at this level in this aftermath. I mean, it's one thing I've dealt with the facing him and the what I've processed with my own daughter's brutal murder and that aftermath.
Mhm.
But I feel like justice was served for that part.
Mhm.
And then you throw at me that he still has a voice for her children. Because that's what I kept saying through all this is that
Mhm.
this is my daughter's children. They're my daughter's children. What are you doing?
Well,
Uh,
and then Hope,
yeah.
if he would have murdered, well, he murdered your daughter, wouldn't he go after the children as well at some point?
Well, he did. That was the plan. That was the grooming. He was already targeting the children.
Mhm.
He was suppressing the children and training the children to go against their mother and demeaning her in front of them, telling them that, she's a bad mommy. This all came out more so throughout the trial.
Mhm.
He did tell the oldest daughter that, she's going to get a bullet in her tonight for sure. And the oldest daughter responded that mommy's not coming home. Um, they would have secrets and they would pinky swear to each other. There was that grooming bond, very demonic grooming bond. So the
Mhm.
children were already affected by the perpetrator prior to the murder. Yeah.
It seems that, a pattern with these sociopaths is they'll kill the parent, but then they may also kill the children soon after or at a later date.
Yeah. In fact, just to finalize the woman I spoke with, she says, it's amazing because she has studied the psychopathic pattern through other victims of this type of crime. And she had said that it's amazing that your daughter that this took 12 years for him to do. Usually, a psychopath at this level, it's within the first 3, 4 years of the relationship.
Mhm.
And I
Hmm.
thought, wow. And this is somebody who, profiles for a living. They profile for a living. That's what they do.
Mhm.
And study body language, all kinds of whatever, history, whatever. This is what they do. And I found that shocking.
Mhm.
And I asked her, well, what makes you, why, because this was already planned in his mind. This was already going to take place. He just didn't know when or what. He was already, um, so, you know, a psychopath just doesn't wake up one morning and say, I'm a psychopath. This is something that goes deeper than that. And even in science,
Mhm.
from what I'm understanding. Um, so yeah, the way it was said is that, 12 years, your daughter was a very strong woman, young woman, to be able to have a higher tolerance level of what a mood swings or the nitpicking stuff or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, because usually people at this level of psychopathic within the first 3-4 years of the relationship will take their victim.
Hmm.
So there are signs, but you can't. I'll tell you, I went through videos and birthdays and Christmas, and he always had one child in his arms, flipping burgers at the grill, at our
Mhm.
picnics, family picnics. He was playful with the girls, like a
Mhm.
dad,
Mhm.
and very, very involved. Um, so I look at that, but I could tell you that the aftermath of that, when I looked at him at sentencing, he had no soul.
Mhm.
He had no soul, and it had nothing to do with delusion. Um, he was very calculated in this, and he never had a soul. And in fact, everybody else who gave their victim impact statement, he didn't even show any facial expressions or nothing. But when I looked at him, he mumbled something under his breath as if that's not how it happened. He was like defiant against me because I said,
Mhm.
this has been 12 years in the making, and you had worked very hard to come between my daughter and I through those 12 years,
Mhm.
and you didn't succeed. And he was like mumbling, almost as if he said, well, that's not how it happened. That's not how it was. So I looked into his history.
Mhm.
I looked into his family life, and he had a huge family and family reunions and birthdays and Disney World and traveled. And his father was a Vietnam veteran, and his mother died of a very rare brain disease. But throughout that, they had big family, you know, uh, life. He had a brother that had 6 children. I mean, big, big family, like a big Italians of families, and um,
Hmm.
so you can't go say, well, it must be something in the childhood. From what I've seen, uh, videos of his own upbringing, he graduated high school, he's gone to college, he had a federal job, you know, um,
Hmm.
yeah, there's no rhyme or reason to it, and we may never know. I just know that it has its own entity. It and the system is part of that problem.
Mhm.
It breeds. It's almost like a breeding incubator of this ugly. I can't. Other than that, I can't see why they would force children to have relationships with the perpetrators across the board.
Mhm.
Across the board, whether it's a murderer, um, a rapist, or
Mhm.
I just there's children out there right now with a parent that's molesting them daily, and these family courts aren't doing anything about it. There's another huge case in downstate New York City, Long Island. The mother with her 3 boys um, cried and cried for months and pleaded and begged that she felt the father was sexually assaulting these children, her boys, and
Mhm.
nobody listened until they found one of the boys frozen to death in the garage. Now, the father and the new girlfriend have been arrested. The trial starts this month.
Mhm.
Um, but sexual abuse across the board. and nobody listened to this mother's cry. Um, and we're losing children's lives like that. So we can't ignore this, and that's
Mm-mm.
part of why I'm speaking out.
Mhm.
We have to be the voices for these children, regardless of what the scenario is. We have to walk into the family court and court watch. We have to participate and say, I met somebody who's very serious about forcing cameras in the family court arena so it could get, documented
Mhm.
properly. Um, and we have cameras in the trial,
Mhm.
and we had cameras in the whole murder trial with my daughter, but we have to hold these people accountable.
Mhm.
Um, I really believe the extortion of children is a prosperous business for many, many.
Mhm.
Uh, I, and I hate to say it, and I don't even want to think it because I believe in. Uh, I just believe in the good people of our police departments and our public officials that they thrive for that for the greater good.
Mhm.
We got to hang
Yeah.
on to that there's really good people out there who really want to protect children and be a voice for their care, um, with nothing in return other than to pass it forward for the greater good, you
Mhm.
know. So it's gotten bigger for me, and telling my story hopefully will help somebody uh,
Mhm.
reach out to me or reach out to even your show, or the victim rights shows are out there, and
Mhm.
give a voice to this because we are uh, with intent being
Mhm.
silenced in in these arenas, and it gives me a little bit more courage to say, you know what, I'm going there. I don't care. I'm just I'm gonna do what I feel I have to do
Mhm.
to be heard and to get some type of legal, you know, um, protection here.
Mhm.
And just because I'm refusing to participate in their scheme of things.
And
And
these
yeah,
and these people that are aiding and abetting this are committing child psychological abuse on your granddaughters as well.
they are. They are.
And
They are. They really are.
mhm. And you have a hashtag for your daughter as well. Hashtag KERRI capital ON.
Yeah. Carry on.
I hope in the future you get to see these granddaughters. I don't know why they're not with you. It's it's mind-boggling.
It is. And it was going to be revealed.
Mhm.
It's going to be revealed. And it has to be. It has to be exposed.
Mhm.
It doesn't even matter what it is. It has to be exposed because it's not. I get. When this first. I remember when this first happened, and we have a broken system. Okay, we have broken systems in our school system. We have broken systems, and there's certain ways that you can handle this and say, let's come to a common ground and work through this. And we have this system that just doesn't want to work with you. Just this is the
Mhm.
way it's going to be, and we're going to govern you. And I'm here saying, I'll just put it out there. I'll be damned. You're going to
Mhm.
govern me.
Mhm.
I've done nothing wrong. You're not going to govern me. You're
Mhm.
not going to court order me to do anything. I haven't done anything.
Mhm.
Um, and it's a very resistful hostile environment when you do that.
Mhm.
And but the numbers are getting bigger. The protests are out there. More people are talking about. We're giving it light. We're giving it a voice. My last time with my granddaughters, my oldest granddaughter drew me a picture. And because that was part of the stuff they did when they come to grandma's,
Mhm.
draw pictures and put them on the refrigerator. Um, but this picture was different.
Mhm.
And usually it's sunshine and rainbows and smiles and, pretty bright colors. And the picture I hold now, which when I go protest is a big picture now, is my granddaughter with a sad face and a tear coming out of her eye. And in her belly area are clouds and flowers. And then over the top of that is scribbled with a dark brown crayon. And you don't have to be a child psychologist or anything of that level to realize that this child has been suppressed.
Mhm.
And these therapists saw this picture because it was her
Mhm.
therapist that, when I last saw my granddaughter, that was holding on to it for me so that my granddaughter can give it to me.
Mhm.
Now, this is the very therapist I'm going to challenge her license because she's the therapist, and you explain to me as a therapist how you can allow these children to be forced to a perpetrator. What
Mhm.
type of therapist are you? Are you even qualified? And why would you continue? How did you get licensed?
Mhm.
You know, even if you work for the organization you work for, you still are licensed by the state.
Mhm.
You have an obligation. But so do these officials. They took an oath. They work for the people. Um,
Yeah, there needs to be accountability.
yes, you know. And was there some psycho law in your training as a therapist during such a devastating time of my family's life to hand me such a devastating photo?
Mm.
That's the psychic law that they use. That is detrimental. What do you think that would do to a person? It devastated me. Devastated me.
Yet she offered no explanation, just handed you the picture.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a system of destruction. It can't be any other way. It sure wasn't a positive thing. They
Mm-mm.
completely excluded me from my daughter's children, knowing we had natural, loving, caring, trusting relations. So the last thing I said to my granddaughter, I'll probably get choked up about this, but last thing I said to my granddaughters, I was on my knees, I was at eye level, and I said, you got to be brave. And that grandma's in your heart and you're in my heart, and you got to be brave. And grandma and grandpa are going to figure this out, but we
Mhm.
have to be brave. And they were like whisked away from us.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, that devastated my husband too. So
Mm.
we can't figure out who these people are that can do stuff like this with intent and claim it's in the best interest of children. Um, that had
I
nothing to do with the children.
I kinda think they're sociopaths as well. Perhaps it's a sociopathic system.
Yeah, that's why the picture of the training center.
Mm.
Um, it's like the incubator for this type of training. And somehow that infiltrated over these decades because, like I said, I'm a grandma years ago, and I grew up in the upper middle class of Rochester. And, we had our floods or whatever. Even as a kid, I can remember these agencies were like the Red Cross.
Mhm.
They were in place for families in tragedy or trauma, and they were going to be a support system for you.
Mhm.
And I thought that's what this was when this tragedy hit my family, because we didn't volunteer the situation. And my expectations were the same as they were back in the day, that we're going to be okay. We're going to get through this as a family unit. And we're going to have, the proper therapists set up for us to help us grieve and make these decisions for these children, right?
Mhm.
There was 8 women around the table here who have been through college and education and training, and there's a supervisor at the head of the table, and we're going to put a plan together for these girls, and they're going to be okay. We're going to give these girls an opportunity in life who just lost their mom and dad and cannot put it together.
Mm.
They just lost their protectors. We
Mhm.
know what happened, but these little girls are looking at their dad as their protector.
Mm.
These little girls are looking as all they know, as mom, as the protector. And you take their grandparents away, and you just, it has to be abolished.
Mhm. Mhm.
And if that's what they're doing in this training center, and it's the incubator for the sociopathic type of process out here, it has infiltrated into our family network. And uh, we have to stop this.
Mhm.
It's ripping our country apart. Even if you want to go to
Mhm.
that level, it's
Oh, it
ripping
is.
apart the American family.
Mhm.
Um, and more people have to be. It's strange because I've tried to explain this, and to even my friends. I like I said, I have friends that are in their 70s, and the baby boomers. They've lived a life. They've enriched the life, and that some have lost friends over this subject.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, some have lost friends and don't want to talk about it, and basically, we've paid into the system. We've done our time. It's our time now to retire. The newer generation has to take the reins, and which is true.
Mhm.
The newer generation has to take the reins. And like I said before, if something should happen to my husband and I, normal at age, whatever,
Mhm.
the girls are going to have to take the reins. So I want everything legally documented, because I do believe this will turn around. And it's in the DNA of my grandchildren. I
Mhm.
come from a long tradition of strong women. My mother, their grandmother, great grandmother were strong women. They're going to take the reins, and they could hold accountable and dissolve this psychotic system.
Mhm.
I just don't know, I have no other
Mhm.
outlet. I have no other outlet but to have that
Mhm.
happen in the length of time I have in life. Um, I do know they'll be a part of my life.
Mhm.
Um, because so many people said, "Oh, you should get a lawyer, go sue them, or this and that." None of that has crossed my path. My
Mhm.
path has been the voice to get those girls back in my life now, while they're young, their brain's still developing. What I'm hearing for the oldest grandchild isn't doing well, and you know, and I get angry.
Mhm.
How dare they? And and that's what keeps me going.
Mhm.
And if I have to make a citizen's arrest, I do. I'll
Mhm.
do that before a lawsuit. What's a lawsuit going to do? Lawsuit
Mhm.
isn't going to do nothing. Maybe that's just who I am. I'm not
Mhm.
really a materialistic person, but I'd rather just, what's that going to accomplish? It's not going to
Mhm.
accomplish anything. This became a stronger voice for me for other children. And uh, it hasn't been easy. It hasn't been easy. And we've had our struggles. But I have to be a voice for the future for these girls, we have to. Um,
Definitely.
these are going to be young women, and
Mhm.
they have to. I know they have the fight of that in their DNA, and for anyone to oppress that and belittle that,
Mhm.
you know, we know it still exists. They're doing it to
Mhm.
me
Mhm.
at my age. I thought we were over this.
Uh, I'm 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 just so glad you're brave enough to speak out about it.
Yeah, I don't know about the bravery. I think it's just a human obligation. I just feel obligated to put a voice to the corruption,
Mhm.
put a voice to, um, and not even to install any fear or everything, but we better all wake up. This
Mhm.
is, I didn't know,
Mm-mm.
and I take responsibility for that. I voted and I paid attention, to certain things when it came to that. My like the life before my daughter's murder and the life after. But this has been going on for decades.
Mhm.
This has been going on for decades. And like I said, I have friends in their 70s that had no clue either.
Mhm.
And it opened their eyes as well. And they're furious
Mhm.
that they've paid into this system and all it's been was a scam.
Mhm.
And, people are taking that power and that greed and they're causing destruction to children. And we have to turn this around. So it's become a bigger issue. Um, and that's not going to happen overnight because we didn't
Mm-mm.
get here overnight. It's
Right.
not going to change overnight.
With you speaking out, do you have a lot of parents trying to get in touch with you?
I do. Well, I do. And again, it's just to have these kind of conversations.
Mhm.
Um, like passing back and forth different ideas,
Mhm.
or even just listening. But in the beginning, when this first started happening, it was like the people who were coming across my path,
Mhm.
they were at the level of the fight and knowledgeable of the law and knowledgeable of the system.
Mhm.
And I'm grateful for that because you learn real quick. It's almost
Mhm.
like you're thrown into the lake and say, learn how to swim.
Mhm. Mhm.
Nobody's there. There's no training for this. It's like out in the middle of the lake and you better learn how to swim. Okay. Or if you want to get to shore. And that's how it felt. And it takes your breath away
Mhm.
and trauma. And so we're navigating through this path. Um, I have also helped with my research and networking or whatever. I have also helped other grandmothers who've been fighting the system for, 8 years for, for parental rights or custody of their grandchild. And
Mhm.
it's thousands of dollars and second mortgages on their home. And through our conversations like this, we're saying, stop what you're doing. Don't pay
Mhm.
another attorney. Don't give him another dime. He's an officer of the court. He's obliged to the court in family court.
Mhm.
It's a system. It's a scheme. And you've been paying this out. And the thing that gets me is these attorneys know it. The attorneys know it.
Mhm.
They know how the system works. They're not going to tell you that. And that's
Yeah.
terrible. In fact, I've counseled with many, and I think that's part of the design too, is to go around and call every attorney in your area, see if you could get a counsel with them. I've even had attorneys say, "Well, I can't help you, but you come in for $250 and I'll counsel you," as if they're a therapist or something. I'm not looking for a
Mhm.
therapy session. I'm looking for an attorney who knows family law, and it's rare
Mhm.
because they just won't go against the system. It's like yeah, uh,
Yeah. Yeah, or
it's
they're afraid to go against a certain judge, or they're friends with a certain judge.
yes,
That makes the case a lot easier,
yes,
definitely.
yes, and there's a lot of rubbing elbows, and
Mhm.
I started getting that impression early on, and I think it's because of my age and life or whatever. But these young families. Now, if this happened to me when I was raising my young family, in CPS, I've never had CPS or family court or any of this stuff in my life. I've never even been in a courtroom.
Mhm.
But as a younger mom and raising children, a young family, and I would get a knock on the door, and you're taught to open the door, come on in. Is there a problem? And
Mhm.
once you do that, they're ruining your life.
Oh, they do.
And I'm
Yes.
thinking, what is going on here? And I said, I didn't know any of that until I've experienced what I'm experiencing.
Mhm.
But can you imagine well, I can't imagine anymore. I've talked to them now. And nobody's there to believe in them. It's got to be you. It's almost like it's been molded to that. It's got to be you. You're the one that's not a good parent. I've experienced it now. I've been shunned in my neighborhood.
Oh, I'm
Uh,
sorry.
because that's what is out there right now. Um, the environment is that you are shunned. It's got to be you and your family. And
Mhm.
it's shocking because I remember back in the early 70s, I'll give you an idea of my age, but I remember this was around just as the American Disability Act came out.
Ugh. Yeah.
Now, I had a sister that was born severely disabled back then and going to public school, but I remember the feeling of the shun in the neighborhood, uh, and my father fighting for her to have an education. It seems as if all these years later, we're back at that era, that
Mm.
that that feeling here that you're fighting for a free, appropriate education. You're fighting for your liberties and your rights.
Mhm.
It seems like we're there again. The feelings are there, and it's detrimental. It's a detrimental, lawless states, and it has to stop. Uh, Especially that children are coming up missing and dying and trafficked, and uh, this is and this will never completely dissolve it. It'll never, and unfortunately, it's the evil of the world, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But to not have it a forefront of a topic daily is the problem.
Mhm. I
And
agree. Mhm.
yeah, it has to be talked about. A regular conversation, you know, um, and it has to be transparent, transparency and accountability
Mhm.
with these people who we put in position to have the authority to do that and hold them accountable.
And,
And yeah,
how can parents reach you if they have a question or want to make contact with you?
well, they can give me, they could call me, and they want to reach out and talk with me. And my number is 315-412-3037. Text me. You text me first, and I'll call you back. Um, but yeah, and I will also connect them to um, other people that have crossed my path. It's like this networking we've gotten into that,
Mhm.
like I would connect them to contact you, Maryann,
Mhm.
and there are other victim advocates that do podcasts and radio that are focusing on victims of the system. It doesn't have to be a murder situation, like
Mhm.
in my situation, but who are continuously victimized by the system. And it's almost as if you are going to have the rest of your life with this mark on your back
Mhm.
on these
Mhm.
children. They're they're almost wanting them a cycle in the system.
Oh,
And
definitely.
yeah,
Oh, I
yeah,
agree.
yeah.
Do you
Um,
want do you want people to email you?
oh, that
Or
would be great. Yeah, sure. They could email me.
okay, I'll put that in the podcast notes. And
Yeah.
along with your phone number. So are you sure you want me to put your phone number in here?
I know I'm thinking about that. I'm like, wait a minute. Maybe not Maryann.
Okay, I'll leave
Can
your
you delete that?
yes. Yes, I will go through and edit that.
Oh, I just give it out naturally. Here you go. Yeah. Who's gonna
But
call
yeah.
me, right?
Yeah, well, you never know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd like to have you back on the podcast as things progress.
Oh, that'd be
Um,
great. Yeah.
definitely. So,
Yeah.
don't jump off. Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these family courtrooms. I'm your host, Maryann Petri, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth. Please join us again here with Hope Wagner in the future and other exciting guests. Thank you so much, Hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Maryann. Thanks for having me.
Definitely.
It was excellent for me. Thank you.
Thank you.